Welcome to episode 35 of the tutorial series Livewire 3 from scratch. My name is William Juma. In this episode, we will learn about Livewire Vault. Vault is an API for Livewire that enables us to create single file components in Livewire where PHP code and Laravel blade coexist in the same single file. Let us go ahead and see how we can be able to install Vault. We are going to run the command, and remember, just to mention something, this is the application that we have been working with throughout. I have not created any other app, so since episode 1 of this tutorial series, I'm using the same application. So basically, we have the layout file, remember, and the layout file that we have is the one that Vault is going to use if we are to render it as a full page component. And also, we created a user table in our previous episode, somewhere where we registered a user. I'm going to use part of that information that we had in the previous tutorial for us to be able to register or create a new user. But of course, if you are following this tutorial and you are not preview to whatever it is that we have done in the past, you can just go ahead and create a model, a user model, and in fact the user model is already there, so you don't need to create anything. Actually, you will just include it here and ensure that you've connected your application to the database, and then once that is the case, you can be very fine to be able to follow this tutorial. So I want us to install Vault, and of course we have installed Livewire already. So for you to be able to use Vault, you must install Livewire first and then install Vault. So let us install Vault. Composer, require, Livewire, /Vault, like that. I hit enter, and this command is going to install for us Vault. And I'm going to just pause the video temporarily such that we have the installation complete, and then we can continue. Our installation is complete, and as you can see, we have version 1.3 of Vault. I want to clear terminal such that we run another command which will create for us the service provider, which in this case you'll be able to search for our Vault single file components in our application and be able to display them. So let us go ahead and do that. I'm going to run the command php artisan Vault install, and of course it has published the service provider, and of course it has created a folder which of course is still in existence, which we are calling views Livewire, this folder here that we have here. So in this case we're just fine. And remember, we also afterwards we created the layout component by running the command php artisan Livewire layout, but in this case we will not do it because we created it in one of the tutorial episodes. So you are supposed to create the layout file which our component will be using. And remember, in our layout file we have Bootstrap installed, so we will just use it in a similar fashion in which we were using the layout file in the previous episodes. In fact, you will see our navigation bar being loaded. In fact, every functionality that we have in our layout file, even the switching of the modes from the dark mode to the light mode, will also be functional. So let us go ahead and create a component. So I'm going to clear terminal, and I want us to create a Vault component. So what we are going to do, we are going to run the command php artisan make, and then we are going to say, now instead of having Livewire, now we are going to say Vault. Remember, the same way we were doing it when we are creating the Livewire component, now we are creating the Vault component. So instead of make Livewire, we are doing make Vault, and then the name of our component. So in this case, I want to call this one Vault -s, maybe single file component, something of that sort. I'm going to hit enter, and this file is going to be created inside resources views Livewire, the same folder that we have been creating our Vault, our Livewire components, the blade components, and you can see we have Vault sfc.blade. So let us open it and be able to put in some code. And as you can see, the first thing that we are having is that we are importing state, and any other thing that you want to import, you can be able to pass it here. You can import even the layout if you are using a different layout from the app.blade. In other words, components, layouts, app.blade. If you're using a different one, you can be able to pass layout and then state it here. But since we are not going to do that, I will remove it, and we will see if we will be in need of it. We can be able also to have computed property like that, and then be able to use it. So basically that is what is going to happen. So now let us go ahead and be able to put our code. So here inside the PHP tags is where we have our PHP code, and then inside here is where we will have our blade files. So let us go ahead to get Bootstrap and copy a form, and then come and modify the form and use it. I already have opened forms in Get Bootstrap, and what we have here, we have the forms, and we just click on overview. We find the simple basic form that is usually here. This form here is the one that I'm going to copy. So I'm going to copy everything in entirety from here up until the end, like that, and then I'm going to paste inside the div of our component. So inside here I'm going to paste our form like that. I want to center my form a little bit, but so I have a class here, and I'm just going to do offset 3 column 6. But remember, this kind of centering is not responsive. But I'm just doing because we are working on the web and nothing more apart from that. And then now after that, I just want to do some cleanup here. I will remove that ID, and also we are having some IDs here, just to make it a little bit leaner. And then this of not sharing the email with anyone else, I remove it completely. So we have an input looking like this. I would like to copy this input one more time and put it above, whereby now you have the input for the name. So here I'm going to have the type is text, and then we are going to have wire model, and we are going to pass in the name. So in this case, this one is name. I also want to handle the validation errors. So in this case, I can say at error, and then we can say the error that belongs to the name property, and inside here we can have end error, and inside here I want us to go ahead and be able to have a span with a class of text danger, and then we can be able to have our error message here like that. I'm going to close, but it should be a variable, so I'm going to have it like that. And so basically we have the input for the name, and we have handled validation errors. We also have the input for the email here. I also want to handle the validation errors, so I'm going to paste that and change this to email. The type should also be email, and then here we can have wire model, email, like that. And then lastly, I want us to work on the password. So even this one, I'm going to remove this one. I feel it's not very necessary. And also label for something, even this one I'm going to remove, such that we have it like that. And I'm going to have wire model and we are going to have the password like that, and then I can copy the error handling here and just come and paste it down here like that, and change this to password like that. Of course, this last thing of checking, I don't need it, so let me just delete it. Then of course the button is submit, and we are submitting our form to a method called save. So here I'm going to have wire submit, and then we are going to have save like that. As you can see, whatever it is that we are having in our blade file is totally the same as what we would have even when we are dealing with the real Livewire component. But of course, this one is a small modification, and you are going to find changes on how we are going to display, or in other words, process our data here. And remember, this one is the what I mean is that we have this type of the way in which you can present it, and we can also have the class-based way, whereby now you have a class here in a similar way in which you are having the Livewire classes. So let us go ahead and be able to process our data. So the first thing that we need is we are going to have our properties. So we are going to declare our properties, and when declaring our properties is what we are going to do. So the first property is name, like that, and we will close it using a semicolon, and then we can be able to copy those ones downwards. And then of course the next one is email, and then the next one is a password like that. And then after that we need to have a submit method. So in this case we can be able to have save. There is a method that we have declared here that we are submitting to, a method called save. So I can be able to go ahead and say save, and then we can have a function. And if it's just one line of something that you're performing, then you can be able to just use the arrow function to be able to do that. But in this case, I want us to perform validation. So I'm going to have validated is equals to this validate. Remember, this is the same way in which you are doing validation. And then inside here, we can be able to pass whatever it is that you're validating. So of course, let me just move it a bit here. What you're validating name. Name, you can say the name is required. And you can say maximum 255, such that anyone playing around with our application will not be able to cause it to maybe throw an error or something. And then email, we can be able to have that the email is required, that the email is unique, is an email, is a valid email, and then that the email is unique. In the table users, and then we can also say maximum, again 255, because it's a string. Then lastly, we can have password, and also for password we can say it's required, and we can also maybe give it a minimum value, so maybe minimum 4 characters, and then of course we can say maximum 255, just to protect our application. So I have saved, and then the next thing that I'm supposed to do is now go ahead and save our users. So in this case, we can call the user model, and then we say save like that, user save, and we pass in validated like that. So our component looks something like this, something like that. So this is where we have our the other code, in this case the PHP code. Now for us now to be able to show this component as a full page component, we can open the web.php file and then declare a route for it. So I'm going to open web.php. And down here, I want to copy whatever it is that we have here, or should I? Let me just type in whatever it is that we're supposed to have for saving, or in this case, for having a route. So here we are going to have Volt. That is how we will declare our route. And then inside here, we are going to pass the URL that we will visit. I want to just call it Volt. And then, of course, the second parameter is going to be the name of our component. So in this case, as you can see, it's Volt-SFC. Volt-SFC, like that. And then we are supposed to import this method that we are calling Volt. So above here, we can say use Livewire, and then Volt, and then Volt, like that. So once we have declared it like that, I want us to visit our URL, which is Volt, and see if we can be able to load our page. Now you can see we have our page. And remember, we are using still the same navigation bar that we had. So in other words, the layout file that we are working with is the same layout file that we have been working with in all the other applications. So in other words, it means even you can have in the same application, you can have some part of it being Volt and some part of it being Livewire and still be fine without issues. If I attempt to submit, you can see it's telling me that these fields are required. I believe I have MySQL connected, so let me try and save a user here. In fact, before we save, I want us to return a session message. So maybe we can do that here. I'm going to have session, and then we can say flash, and then we can have success. And then we can pass in the session message. So we can say user has been created successfully. Like that. And then, of course, I will go back to my page. Oh, it's just the same page. I want us to handle the flash messaging here, so we can have at if session, I think I've called it success, at if session success. That is what I've called it. We can have at end if, like that, and inside here we can be able to have a div with a class of alert success, and we close the div and be able to pass in our message here, our session message. So here I'm going to have session and then success, like that. So if everything is typed in correctly, I want us to attempt and see if we can be able to save a user. So I'm going to call this user of ours James. Maybe let me call him William. And then the email address is William Juma. Let me just write the two names because I believe I might be having just a single name in the database. So at example.com. And the password, I'm going to just type a string that is more than 4 characters. When I click submit, now we are having user not found. It's because I've not imported the user model. So let me go ahead and do that. So above here, I'm going to say use app models user, like that. And now I want us to try again. So I'll just, since it is the same file that you're working with, I'm going to refresh. So the name, and I think the label for the name is also still wrong because it's called email address. Maybe I can change that. We call it name, like that. And then now refresh, such that we do not have email address and email address. Yes, name. And I will call our user William, and then the email address William Juma at example.net. And then I'm going to type a password and then submit. And then it's saying we are calling non-static method save. Oh, it's supposed to be create. Why did I type that? It's supposed to be create, not save. I don't know what I was doing there. So again, let us attempt. William, and then William Juma at example.net, and then the password. Going to type in some things. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to use, yes, user has been created successfully. And of course, if we try something that we did in our previous tutorial to toggle between the dark and the light mode, even that one still works. So basically that is how to work with a Vault file, and I believe this tutorial episode gives you some sort of basis. Of course, going forward, I will try, whenever we are creating a new thing, I will try to either use Vault such that we are able to maybe give a little bit of practice to the knowledge that we have gotten in this episode and be able to do even a little bit more than what we have looked at. This is the end of the tutorial episode. I ask that if you have not subscribed, that you may please subscribe to my channel. And if you like the video, you give it a thumbs up and share it. You can also engage in the comment section. Thank you.